Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting back into death metal, there is a lot to talk about with issue 3 alone, because a lot happens here so quick. But even with that being the case, I want to slow down some of these things and talk about the imperfections of Bruce Wayne, but also a couple things from Justice League and Doomsday Clock that could be pretty clutch and around the corner. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so just picking up from where we had left off, where we had seen Bruce, who had this plan with his bunker with a ton of repurposed items from Toy Master, which had a range of items in there like your one-to-one Nightmare Batman Hot Toys, all the way to your Justice League Trinity Megazord, which Bruce had planned to take to the Sun Prison for him, Diana, and the others to break out Superman. But real quick we find out that is turned into a shell game, because off the bat we see that your Nightmare Batman Patrol, they've broken this toy to where they notice there's no signs of life in it. But amongst these Nightmare Batman, which are like your worst reflections of Bruce, on one hand you have Night Glider, which is pretty much Batman if he was in the Fox Fantastic Four movie. Legitimate nightmare there, no further need of explanation. But in the case of your other two, which is your Collector, who's pretty much your Batman Brainiac, and your Red Lantern Batrocitus, like those two I'm gonna need to see a lot more of. And I mean like full-blown origins and all that. Because prior to this point, we've got a few nice ones, who unfortunately at this moment in time are no longer with us, after unfortunately being Rorschached or Bat Splashed, whatever you want to call it. And it was a big bummer because I was really looking forward to that Batman Beyond, like Nightmare Batman scenario. But I'll also say that at least we got to see some of those origins within Legends of the Dark Knight. But even in that case, not as many of them got the spotlight as like your Batman Hatton. But all I'm saying is I wouldn't mind seeing more, even with how ridiculous they may be in some cases. But it's here at New Apocalypse where these Nightmare Batman break open this super robot and nobody's inside but Jonah Hex. And it's here where we quickly discovered that it was made to be a distraction so that Batman, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, and Swamp Thing could get away. But when they arrive here on New Apocalypse, like prior to this point, we had an idea of what the Batman Who Laughs intentions were with this New Apocalypse. And we had even got a glimpse of it in the first issue when the Batman Who Laughs had like his morning meeting and we saw Superman undergoing some crazy process, to where we had seen the Nightmare Batman Darkfather, he was working on making Superman succumb to the anti-life, which showed us at the time a glimpse of where Superman is at right now. But while they're on their way to get him and they're being chased by Darkfather's para-Robins, because if there's a Batman Darkseid, of course you got Robin-like parademons. But as they're approaching the prison where Superman is kept, it's here where Swamp Thing notices that all the way back on Earth, the Batman Who Laughs, he has just made his insane transformation. And though Swamp Thing doesn't know exactly what this means, he does know that they have to hurry up and get Superman, because this insane upgrade which he can sense from the sun, like it's enough of a sign to let him know that things are gonna get from bad to worse, and really soon at that. But it's here where we take a look inside of the prison where Superman is being held, and Darkfather is using this machine which he had used Mr. Miracle to make, which is designed to convert Superman's cells from Kryptonian to anti-life and reform him into more of a tyrant like his Dark Multiverse counterparts. And the design is pretty sick with like the stained glass ceiling with all different colors of kryptonite. But what I find a bit more intriguing is the concept of which Darkfather gets to telling him is that these Dark Multiverse variants, that to him, Darkfather, that each one of them are just a result of each hero succumbing to their truest nature, which for Batman on some level is a destroyer, and in the case of Superman, ultimately they're all tyrants, which again is the purpose of converting Superman into this tyrant. But it's here when Bruce, Diana, and the others arrive, and Darkfather sends the para-Robins to fight him off. Like, this is the part where we start to get to where I feel like Bruce didn't entirely have the whole plan together. Because it's here where Wonder Woman's like, okay, I'll take Darkfather, you release Clark. And when he starts to, Mr. Miracle lets him know, like if you let him out now, the anti-life will take over by consuming his dead cells. And Bruce responded like in that moment, like he has a plan for that, and that I believe. But this right here, like this right here, when Batfather brought his version of the gun from the previous crisis, that would, instead of sending Batman back in time, this bullet would then just erase them from ever existing. And this right here, I'm calling Batman bluff on, because I don't believe he had a plan for this. Because when Darkfather shot him and he didn't go anywhere, like in that moment he called for Clark, and really at that point just letting Clark know that he's good and he can step off of the death metal elliptical, because Clark's dead cells, they're subject to the Black Lantern ring. But even still, I argue that has nothing to do with Batman getting shot and not going nowhere, because we not just just gonna brush over that, because it's here where Superman gets out and he just throws Darkfather into like the next crisis or whatever. But it's here where Diana asks Bruce, like, how did you avoid that bullet? Like, what happened? And it's here where he kind of brushes it off and he's just like a bat blocker. And it's in that moment where it's like, okay, now wait a minute, because it's here that I would argue the point, though he kind of brushes over it and they move on, because Batman is known for just being prepared and just having the answer before the question. And for that reason, like in this moment, he's able to brush it over and everybody's like, okay, well, like, wow, he did it again. But my thoughts on such are not so much. And I'd like to start the argument, and not really start the argument, but just make the point that I believe that this is none of Bruce's doing. Because if you guys remember not too long ago when Diana found Wally West in the Tartarus pit, and they had this conversation where she had discovered from Wally that the Batman Who Laughs needs to keep them alive, because at the end of the day, these beings from the dark multiverse, they're reflections of these heroes. And much like how we had seen Wally come to the solution at the conclusion of Flash Forward, where he had realized that he was the source of that anomaly in the dark multiverse, and in order to stop it, he either had to be stopped or a part of him had to be lost by sitting in the Mobius chair. And literally the same concept can be applied to Bruce Wayne. Because if Darkfather had killed Bruce Wayne in this moment, and not just killed him, but made it so that he never existed, like this would have had a chain reaction so crazy that not only would it have fulfilled what Darkfather had said about Batman ultimately being destroyers, like to the umpteenth level, but this modified bullet would have destroyed like everything that the Darkest Knight had built up to this point. And with us knowing that his transformation and his influence both have already begun and have started to play out prior to this point, and with us knowing that, I kind of find it hard to believe that the Darkest Knight would just allow Bruce to just be erased from existence and undo the greatest achievement that any Batman has ever unlocked. And doing so by being proactive, which he said he would do, and becoming the Bullet, like he said he would, and saving Bruce in this instance, rather than the idea of Bruce just knowing that that was going to happen. And I mean, it just feels like the more likely possibility, in my opinion. But then after this, we then go to Lobo's Massacre over in the 5th dimension, which is one part in death metal that I would love to see in an animated film, and fingers crossed for us getting that one day. But it's here where we see him continue his scavenger hunt to where the next item that he's looking for, it was hidden down in the tree, who was like, "Don't kill me, Mr. Wobo." But essentially he goes there, he gets it, and he's on to the next. But after this, back in the Crypt of Heroes, which is supposed to be like the safe zone for the heroes during this time. But it's at this time when they're met by the Robin King, and with what happens here, like I really feel like it's one of those moments that it's written extremely well. But had it been done in live action or even animated, like the terror in this moment would have been insane. Because when the Robin King arrives here and he tells them like, I have this utility belt with ways to kill all the heroes, and for an example, this pouch is for Barry Allen. To where inside of a flash ring, there's the corpse of his dead mother, which has been infused with a toxin so that when Barry would go to use it, his mom would jump out, give him a great big hug, and liquefy his muscles. And with hearing this, Dr. Fate is like, look man, don't do this, please, friend. And it's then when the Robin King is like, oh no, I'm not here to do it. I'm here to watch him do it. And then the darkness just starts creeping into the room. And it's in that moment that you just know that there's no hope of fighting this threat, which I feel like would have been just insane, like either animated or live action, like it just would have been crazy. But with them being aware that the Darkest Knight is after Wally West, Dr. Fate gives them a head start on getting away, and it's there where they run off into the Speed Force, which you would think will be a safe zone, especially with this being where Barry was hiding prior to this point. But when they get in there and the Darkest Knight is on their heels, like this one of the moments where you look over your shoulder and a little bit of pee come out, like, oh snap, he right there. And it really reminds me of that moment in like one of the newer Star Trek films where they go into light speed, and for a moment they're like, whoo, we're safe, we're in light speed, no one's gonna catch us here. And then that other ship jumps into light speed right behind them, doing the impossible and chasing them where they thought they would never be chased. Like this really made me think of that moment. But in this case, there's also the additional dilemma with the Speed Force still dying, so it's not like they can run from him in here forever. But back over on New Apocalypse, which is your superhero prison, but now with Superman free, he then frees the rest of the heroes, and it's here where Wonder Woman kind of maps out the plan of what's the next step. Because at this point, since Hell Arisen, Perpetua is being fed crisis energy from the dark multiverse, of which they need to find a way to redirect to someone who can take down Perpetua, to whom when that time comes, that'll be the job of Wally West. And in the meantime, it's up to the other Flashes to keep Wally safe until they can get that crisis energy rerouted. And that part is delegated to John Stewart and the other Lanterns, while Martian Manhunter, he takes a separate team and go directly for Perpetua. But then after that, finally you'll have Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, who would then go into the dark and use that energy to course correct the multiverse. And as part of her plan, she explains that they'll use Jarro to mask their presence while they're doing this, which could be a tease for what we thought we were gonna get from Jarro throughout Justice League, and perhaps even in the form of like a dark multiverse Jarro, which, come to think of it, will practically just be the return of Starro. But even still, I like to see it, so we'll see how that goes. But in a nutshell, that pretty much gives us the next steps of Wonder Woman's plan heading forward. But after this, we then go back to Lobo, who's collected the final piece of his scavenger hunt, and with doing so making his way back to the person who had sent him. And when he goes to take a peek inside, like what's in the box, like what he was sent to get, the voice then tells him like, don't look too soon or you regret it. But then it's here where we come to find out that the person who Lobo's been working with all this time is Lex Luthor, who at this point is operating out of the Legion of Doom headquarters and very likely seeking his vengeance on the Batman Who Laughs since what had happened in Hell Arisen. And at this point, even with the Batman Who Laughs having become the Darkest Knight, I'd even make the argument that he's not aware of what Lex is up to, because if Lex is smart, he would have taken as many notes as possible from everything he learned from the Batman Who Laughs, especially after Lex visited Starman and he came back smelling like tachyons, which for the record hide people from the sight of Dr. Manhattan. And so hopefully after Justice League and Doomsday Clock, Lex took some good notes. And so now real quick before we go, I want to give a special shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link down below to where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let me know like if you think the Darkest Knight knows what Lex is up to, or if you think Lex is being smart and covering his tracks. Because on the other hand, the Darkest Knight could know everything that Lex is doing and just be like, you know, I wish a Luthor would. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.